Aloha and welcome to Ehana Kako. We're here every week on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute. Well, if you're an observer of the political scene in Hawaii, you'll know that we really don't have a large number of Republicans competing against Democrats. Some people say it's really a one-party state, but maybe that won't always be the case. It wasn't always the case, and in fact, we have with us today the 10th Lieutenant Governor of the state of Hawaii, who served under Linda Lingle as governor, Duke Aiona, affectionately known as Duke. And we're going to talk about everything from politics to the future of our state. Please welcome to our program, Duke. Aloha, Duke.
Aloha, Keli'i.
How are you?
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, that's
always
a name.
Always a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, it really is.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. You look a lot more relaxed than you did in your last campaign.
By the way, I'm not sure if I am the 10th. I could
That's
be the
right.
11th, but that's okay.
I'm using Wikipedia. You know how reliable they are. Should I believe anything else they say?
But I should know what number I was.
But that was something. What was it to serve as the second highest position in the state?
Oh, it was fantastic. It really meant a lot to me, and I think it meant much more because we were in a Republican administration.
Now, there are many times that a lieutenant governor really has very little to do. Sometimes they're left in the closet and so forth. But in your case, you were very active on some key issues.
And that's because Governor Lingle allowed that to happen. She wanted me to be active. She wanted me to be a part of her administration, and rightly so, because my main responsibility as lieutenant governor was if anything happened to Governor Lingle, I would step in. And I can tell you this, I remember this, maybe I should keep this for my memoirs.
All right.
I don't know if she's got it for her memoirs, but I remember the first time she left the state. I'm not quite sure if it was after 6 months or a year. I can't remember how long we had been in office. But I remember calling me into her office. She called me into her office. We sat down.
That's right.
And she says, Duke, if anything happens to me, please keep my administration. They're good people. I know you don't know them as well as you're going to know them, but they're really good people, and I hope you can at least
what is it like? What is it like here in our state, which is so dominated by the majority party, Democrats, to be a Republican?
It's really no different than any other thing. I'm serious about that. That was one of the questions I got. I ran twice for governor, as you well know, and that would always be a question. Can you work with the majority party, which are the Democrats? And I said, oh, absolutely. I don't see why not. I mean, why would it make a difference just because I'm a Republican? Obviously, we'll have differences. There's no question about that. But it's like anything else, right? You work through when you have differences. Sure. So I saw it as not being an impediment. I think the governor also. But there's reality to it. And the reality to it is exactly that. They do have the political muscle, and they do have an ideology that can be different from us. And there is such a thing as finding political favor. And they don't want the opposing party to have political favor. So there were times when, yes, decisions were made on their behalf because of politics. And, that's just the way it was. That's just the way it was.
Now, the numbers of Republicans in public office today are even smaller.
Here in Hawaii, absolutely.
Than they were when you were in office.
Yes, it was. We had a little more in the Senate, I think, but not much more now. If I'm not mistaken, I think we had 4.
And you had more in the House as well.
We did.
But we've seen numbers decline significantly. And the irony, too, is this. Whereas Republicans have grown across the nation and are now the majority in Congress, the exact opposite is happening in Hawaii. So here's the tough question I got to throw at you. Really, what is the relevance of the Republican Party here in Hawaii now?
Oh, very relevant. When we talk about government, we always talk about balance, and we don't see it right now in the federal side.
But how can there be a balance when the numbers are so small in comparison to the
I know. No, that's what I'm saying. That's the optimal, right? The optimal is to have that balance. And I don't mean 50-50, but at least to a point where, okay, for instance, in the federal government, you have Republicans that are the majority, both in the Senate as well as in the House of Representatives.
Right.
But on the Senate side, they have that they're filibuster proof. So in other words, they still have leverage in regards to legislation and other things.
Well, now compared
in Hawaii,
to
we don't even have that.
That's right.
We don't even have that.
So, and that's why I'm asking the question: what is the relevance? What role do Republicans have?
Right now, many will say it's no relevance, right? But it is. Why? At least you have a voice. There is a voice. There is a dissenting voice there, and it's not always dissenting. I'd say it's more like another voice, another side to anything.
Now, what is that voice focusing on? For example, if I were to ask you, what are issues today that are clearly Republican issues?
First and foremost, really, is the economy. It really is about the economy. It's about how do we grow the economy.
And why would you say that the economy is a Republican issue as opposed to a Democrat issue?
Well, okay, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
I think it's more about focus.
Okay.
Because here in Hawaii, that's not the focus, and it doesn't have to be the focus. For instance, when I ran this last term, this last election, for me, it was all about a couple of issues.
All right.
First and foremost, it was about the homeless issue.
Yes.
I put that in the front of my agenda. The other candidates, I got to be honest, the other three candidates didn't even mention it really. The second thing I said was affordable housing. I said that had to be at the forefront also. And lastly, I said it's about expanding our economy. How do we expand our economy? And on the Democrat side, it wasn't even talked about. It was whatever came up was the flavor of the day. And that's pretty much how they can operate.
Well, today, homelessness and housing are big issues for the Democrats.
Well,
really.
only because, Keli'i, it came about because of their ineptness and their lack of attention to it.
What I hear you saying is a little different than I hear some other politicians say. You're talking about homelessness and the economy in the same breath.
Absolutely.
You're not saying one over the other.
No.
You're not saying let's just spend all we can to solve this problem. You're saying we need to have a robust economy.
Likewise with affordable housing.
What do you think is needed to build our economy today?
I think we gotta, well, you hear this and it's a cliche, but it's not. It's about diversification. Good example is the TMT,
All right.
right? I believe
30-meter telescope.
Yes, a 30-meter telescope up on the Big Island in Mauna Kea. I think that is that could be not only a huge shot in the arm for Hawaii Island in regards to their economy, right? But also for the entire state, and more importantly, in regards to astronomy, right?
Well, let me insert over here now, because you're not only a Republican who might be expected to say, let's build this development, the 30-meter telescope, because of global investment, but you're also known as a Native Hawaiian. And there are some Native Hawaiians today, namely the ones that are up there at Mauna Kea blocking the access way and so forth, who say that's sacred ground, who say that this is defying or this is actually desecrating the Aina and so forth. Obviously, you don't take that position.
Well, I respect that.
Yes.
So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they don't have a position that is without merit. I obviously respect that. But I also respect the process by which it went through. And I believe that it went through the proper process.
And you speak from the perspective of a sitting judge.
A judge,
at one time,
yes,
you were
yes.
family court, then you designed the drug court. You've been very
No,
involved.
no, they just had a hearing on that. And there were some justices that questioned that.
Yes.
Whether or not the process was indeed
That's right.
done correctly. And if it wasn't, then that's a part of the process. The appellate process is a part of the process. But to say right now, that this needs to be stopped, that you can't go through with it, because there's nothing to preclude the construction of it. Nothing. Nothing from a legal standpoint, right? Except maybe as some Native Hawaiians would say, from a moral standpoint, a cultural standpoint, it should be stopped. I don't think there's anybody who's involved in the 30-meter telescope who has any disrespect for the Native Hawaiians and the culture and what they stand for. Nobody.
Right.
Nobody. Everybody respects that. It's a matter of to what degree do we go to and how do we do it. And I think that's where the flaw comes in.
Now, earlier we were talking about the role of Republicans in a Democrat state and so forth. Do you think that has factored into what happened on the TMT, in particular the role of the governor?
No, I think what happened on that is just poor leadership.
Okay.
I think it's just flat out poor leadership. He felt that by, interjecting himself into this, debate, that he could somehow be the facilitator or mediator of it. I think that what that shows is it shows ignorance on his part. I said that in the very beginning when we ran the campaign. I said, look, 30 years of experience as a legislator. He's not an executive. He has no clue about what it is to step in on day one and hit the ground running. And that was, to me, a big issue. And that's what the people who voted him in, I really believe that they have voter remorse right now, because they I guess they kind of thought about that, but they didn't actually see it, and they're seeing it now. And they're seeing it in two respects, Keli'i. I think the 30-meter telescope is one, and the second one, I think, is on this homeless issue. I really believe that in both cases, a lack of just poor leadership and really insight into the problem and how you, as the executive, what your role should be and what you can do in regards to issues
well,
like
that's
that.
very interesting when we take a look at the jurisdictions involved, because really the 30-meter telescope was being accessed by a road that county police were responsible for monitoring, but that didn't solve the problem at that level.
No.
We had the state executive coming in. And then when it comes to homelessness, again, we're dealing with issues at the local and the county level, in which the state now has come in with a master planning group for all of the islands and so forth. So it sounds to me as though you're not interested in power, central control power from the top, running everything we're doing in the
Well,
state.
I think you and I we would agree on that, and many others would agree on that, right? But I think
Is that a distinctive of the Republicans?
No, I don't think so.
There are Democrats who
I don't
hold
think
that
so.
view as well.
See, and this is where we again come back to your first question, your original
Right.
question. You know, how are Republicans relevant, and can they exist? Can they coexist in a state even where you're going to have the majority? You know, well, actually almost every level of government.
That's right. Well, what advice would you give to your fellow Republicans here in the state?
Oh, I'd say, you know, there's, you know, for one, don't get fooled by those that say if you want to win, you have to run as a Democrat. Please don't fall into
Well,
that
we've seen
trap.
some people switching parties.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I'm saying don't fall into that trap. You got to, first of all, you got to understand who you are. You know, who you are as an individual and what you stand for. And then align yourself accordingly. Look, there's never going to be 100%
Sure.
on party ideology, party platform, and everything else. But one or more, I mean, one party or the other is going to line up more with what you believe in, who you stand for, and what you want to represent.
You mentioned earlier that you thought that you believe that the economy is one of those focal issues where Republicans have a distinctive from the Democrats. What are those distinctives about the economy
Well,
that Republicans
first and
have?
foremost, in regards to just growing the economy,
Yes.
I mean, you know, and creating jobs, I think there's a big difference. And I don't think this is something that Democrats can argue. They look at government as being the facilitator, or I guess you can say igniting job growth. I think Republicans believe just the opposite. Republicans know that really, how do you create a job? You create a job by letting the businesses do what they do best.
Well, you mentioned before we came on board here today that last week we had many businesses write a letter to the governor saying
Yes.
that the way that he had managed the TMT is something they, as businesses in the business climate, don't like.
In fact, that was in Sunday's paper, yesterday's paper, and it was on the front page of the second section of the A section, and it was about 3/4 in size of the entire page, and it was an open letter to David Ige about basically let the TMT continue under safe passage.
So in your advisory capacity, what would you say to Republicans about being able to reach out to those businesses and to win their support?
By sticking to what we believe in as Republicans, that is that how do we
So it's
create a
back to
job?
message.
Yes, how do we create jobs? Simple. We allow businesses to do what they do best, and that is to turn a profit. When businesses turn a profit, they create jobs. You stifle business by too many regulations, too much taxation, etc. Which again, to a lot of people say, well, I hear that all the time. Those are just talking. Those are not talking points. Just look at the policies and what's
That's
out
right.
there. It happens here. I shouldn't say it happens. It is happening here in Hawaii. And this example of this is why they were so much in arms, these businesses, because that was one of they had little like bullet points, I guess, in regards to this message. And one of it was just that, the message that you're going to send out to the international community and the rest of the businesses.
So your advice is to tell Republicans that they've really got to be faithful to the essential message, this essential issue that is about building the economy in a way that supports businesses and doesn't give more power to the government.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And when we leave that message,
Okay.
what happens is the integrity of the Republicans then falls.
It does, and there are Republicans that might I guess you could say who are on the fence on that, and they may support some government programs, but their essential basic tenet is what I just talked about. I mean, I'm not saying government is excluded from everything. In other words, just get out, because that's what happened in the last campaign. I said, government's got to get out of the way. Now, obviously, one of the other candidates took that to the extreme, took it literally, and said, well, Duke, you can't get government out of the way on everything, and that's true, you can't. but obviously you know what I'm talking about. There is that line that you draw, right?
Right.
And we obviously have crossed it here in Hawaii. So I can get ridiculous like that and say, government, get
Well,
out of
we'll
the
have
way.
to take a break before you get
Sure,
ridiculous. But
sure.
this is great stuff, dude. I'm talking to the 10th or 11th Lieutenant Governor in the state of Hawaii, and he's Duke Aiona, James Duke Aiona. We're going to be right back with him after this brief message. Don't go away.
Hi, my name's Hillary Weinberg. I'm the host of The Whole Gamut on ThinkTech Hawaii. See us live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. or on our YouTube channel to hear us talk about world affairs from Hawaii and beyond. See you then.
Hi, I'm your host on ThinkTech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, ThinkTech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Welcome back to Ehana Kako. We're here every week on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute. You know that phrase, Ehana Kako? Does it sound familiar to you? If you're in Hawaii, you've heard e pule kako, which is said when people gather together, let's pray together. At the Grassroot Institute, we also say Ehana Kako, let's work together, because think of the terrible alternative, not working together. So our motto there is, let's work together, bringing Hawaii's people together to build a better economy, better government, better society. And these themes are very familiar, of course, to my guest today, former Lieutenant Governor Duke Aiona, who has years of experience in doing just that, bringing Hawaii's people together around issues. And he said in our first segment together that his advice to Republicans would not so much be to rally around the party label, but instead to rally around issues that are authentically good for the people, particularly one in which we don't put all our money into government, all of our power and our hopes and dreams, but rather empower small businesses and people at the ground level in order to make a difference. Duke, as we were talking, you know that we're facing a real struggle here in Hawaii to have a two-party system. And I have friends and colleagues on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, in fact, even independents and movies, who say, for the health of Hawaii politically, regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, there needs to be a more robust two-party system. The balance has to be there. So what would you say to the Republicans about building the party itself? And what are some of your observations about the party?
Well, again, first of all, look and see who you are, okay? Let who you are define where you're going to, how you're going to align. And I can tell you right now, Kelly, I've spoken to many people who are interested in serving.
Yes.
Because that's what it's all about. It's about serving. And I can tell you that many of them line up and pretty much line up with the majority of their principles and their values line up on the Republican side. But because of just history and people talking to them and people don't like to run and lose, right? I mean, it's not an athletic contest. It's not about winning and losing. But on the same token, it is a lot of hard work, and people don't, obviously don't want to put a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of money, and actually, it's more than that. It's also about asking friends and family to help you out than having to come up on the short end. You don't want to see that happen, right? So they're very hesitant about that. And likewise with a lot of businesses, Keli'i. I tell you, I talk to many businesses and they're saying, there's a reputation in Hawaii in regards to pay to play and how you can be punished in this state if you don't go along with the majority. Some of it is true, some of it may not be totally true.
So in the midst of this, how do you attract the right kinds of candidates that will build the party and attract votes?
Okay, one is I guess you could say, alleviating the myth that many have about the Republican Party. Right?
Okay, some of the stereotypes.
Stereotypes, whatever
Like
you want to call it, right?
You're Caucasian, you live in Hawaii,
Right, I'm rich,
and you're rich,
yeah, exactly. And I go to the country club and the whole 9 yards. That we don't align with the blue collar worker.
Okay.
That we don't have compassion, right, when it comes to social issues. Farthest from the truth. And you can use me as an example if you want. I mean, I'm not wealthy. wasn't born into a wealthy family. You could say my mom and my dad worked very hard. My mom was a school teacher. My dad was nothing more than an insurance agent. And they worked hard and put me through, myself and my siblings, through school. And my mom believed in private education, so as such, she worked hard so I could get a private education, a Catholic education.
That's
That's
right.
what she wanted me to have, and so I got that.
Well, you know, you're right about this in terms of stereotypes. Most Democrats and most Republicans in Hawaii look like each other. We're all a blend, a melting pot, and we stratify the whole social spectrum.
Well, if you want to use stereotypes and say, well, Republicans are usually white, etc. Well, you know, in 2010, when we ran for office, it was myself and Lynn Finnegan. Lynn Finnegan is pure Filipino.
Right.
Okay?
And then
She married a Finnegan.
in 2014, it was
2014
you
was
and...
Oahu. So, and you know, on the Democrat side, in 2010,
That's
it was
right.
Neil Abercrombie and Brian Schatz. And, you know, in 2014, it's David Ige and Shan Tsutsui.
Well, at one point, there was a strong, iconic leader for Republicans in Hawaii, Linda Lingle, who asked you to run as her lieutenant governor, and you ruled.
Well, she didn't ask now.
Okay,
Remember,
that's right, you won.
Remember, we were,
So
yeah,
you
it
were
was
brought
a-
together, okay.
It was a contested race. We had 3 people running in that primary. In that
Very good.
22, it was myself, Cam Cavasso, and Dalton Tanao.
You're absolutely right.
Tanonaka.
You won that on your own merits, but then she asked you to stay.
Well, I mean, you know, then we, as she says, it's like a
It was
prearranged
very
marriage,
good.
right? We came
Sure.
together.
But there is this strong individual around whom the party rallies. Today, who is there around whom the party is rallying at this time? I know your interests have taken you elsewhere, out of politics for a while.
I tell you, you know, people talk about that. They say, well, you need, you know, there's nobody to rally around.
Sure.
Well, the Democrats, when the Democrat Party started here in Hawaii, when they first became, I guess you could say, a power, it was Danny Noy and
Right.
and the
Burns.
boys, okay? And then, you know, as the party, I believe, got a little too big, and I don't mean by size, I mean too big in regards to what they had achieved and what they believed, where they stood in Hawaii. And it was pretty evident, right? I mean, they held the majority for 40 plus years, they still hold the majority. Now you see these different, there's a whole lot of factions in there. In fact, I would say that they're not united. I would say that the Democrat Party is not what it was in regards to unity, although they want to make it seem like they were. Many factions in there. So, not that I want to compare us to them, but you're talking about the Republican Party, so how important is that? Well, it's always important, but it doesn't mean that that you have now no relevance, you have no credibility, you have no ambition to be a political party here in the state of Hawaii. You do. We have a party chair, Fritz Rolfing. We have a committee. Not everybody agrees with the direction that they want to go in, but we do have leaders here. Myself, as well as Governor Lingo and other state representatives and former congresswomen, and I think we only got one right now that's still alive that was a previous United States congresswoman, but she's still involved with the party. So you have that, if you want to call it, that leadership or that figurehead there for the Republican Party. It really is a matter of us, again, getting rid of, demystifying, some of the stigma that we have, and making sure that people
Sure.
really, really, truly understand what a two-party system is all about, Keli'i. I think until they recognize that, you're always going to have those that are going to be either naysayers about it, going to want to take the party down, and or just say, well, you guys are just totally irrelevant, so I don't even want to be a part of it.
I remember in the last campaign, you and Elwyn communicated very clearly to people that you were not the typical mold or the stereotype of what it was to be Republicans. In fact, you communicated that both of you were part Native Hawaiians.
We are?
And we're starting to see the engagement of Native Hawaiians in the broader political realm here in Hawaii in big ways. As you know, I don't have to tell you, it's not news, but I was wondering what your thoughts were on the fact that the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and the Native Hawaiian Roll Commission have tasked a group, Na'iaupuni, to hold an election of Hawaiians only, to have a constitutional convention to start a sovereign nation. Thoughts about that?
Well, first and foremost, I agree with you that more Native Hawaiians are getting involved, but it's still at a very dismal dismal level.
Right, the voter turnout, in
it-
fact,
it
is
really-
the lowest
yeah,
amongst all
and,
ethnic
but even with
groups.
Native Hawaiians running, I mean, it should be much more.
Yes.
And for different reasons, and for those different reasons, obviously for different offices. And until that happens, the Native Hawaiian community, first and foremost, getting back to your original question, what do I think about it? I think that it's premature. And why do I say it's premature? Because we don't even have a consensus in regards to where we want to go. But they want to paint the picture that we have a consensus within the Hawaiian community in regards to this Native Hawaiian roll call, and then the AHA that's going to follow with it. Keli'i, you and I know both that it's not even close to a
That's right. In
consensus.
fact, we know that the numbers are so
Oh,
low.
it's low.
There are less than 95,000 signed up, most of whom didn't sign themselves
Exactly.
up, out of 550,000
And-
Native Hawaiians.
Exactly, so what is that, 30%?
It's much smaller,
Okay,
less
so I
than
mean,
20.
so what's going to be accomplished? If it goes
So
through,
one
let's
of
just say
the-
it goes through.
right.
Really, what's going to be accomplished?
Well, if we don't have consensus now going into it, it's not likely that a small group of delegates who vote on a
are going to
sovereign
come out with a
government
consensus.
are going to have
Exactly,
consensus
exactly,
afterward.
exactly.
And one point I agree with you completely about is this, and it's not a legal point, it's just the reality. We Native Hawaiians are not just one group, we're not one tribe, we're not people who could be put onto a reservation or represented by one government administration. I mean, there are Democrats, Republicans, independents.
You make a good point.
There are rich, there are poor. I mean, there are a lot of rich Hawaiians. You and I are not
Yeah,
amongst them,
yeah.
but
No, that's true.
there are some very poor Hawaiians. There are educated, phenomenally educated Hawaiians. And the Hawaiians' views fall on the entire range of social issues. To bring us all together and say, this is the Hawaiians, it's kind of like saying, you're Filipino, you belong in that line.
Exactly.
You're Chinese, you
make a
belong in
good
that
point.
line.
So let's just take this, just break it down very logically and very simple. So in regards to this issue, you have some who say complete sovereignty,
Yeah.
right? Because it was an illegal overthrow, right? We weren't correctly or illegally annexed. And then you have others on this side who will say, well, I kind of like my, I'm a Native Hawaiian, but I'm an American citizen also, and first and foremost. And I like the community that I live in right now. I love being a part of America, and I want it to remain the same. Everything else down the middle.
That's right.
Everything else down the middle. So how are you going to have this consensus?
That's right.
They're adamant on this side. I respect their position. Those that say complete complete sovereignty, and we were never correctly annexed. Okay, I get your argument. I've heard it many times, and I might not agree with it because I don't, but I'm not going to disrespect it. And then people on this side, I respect what they say too. I mean, for some reason, because maybe they don't Olelo very well, or their cultural knowledge is maybe not as great as maybe some on this side. Does that make them any less
That's right.
Native Hawaiian than what's on this side?
A man who's no longer in office by overwhelming numbers who used to say, our diversity does not divide us.
Exactly.
Our
It should
diversity
not divide us.
defines
Right,
us.
exactly.
And I think that's true of the Native Hawaiian people. And so in that vein, what do you think about the Department of Interior under President Obama issuing a statement that they're now going to have rulemaking to accept whatever form of government the Hawaiians come up with and have a U.S. government to government relationship with
Well,
that entity?
I'm smiling because it's orchestrated pretty well. The timing of it couldn't be any better in light of the lawsuit that is now pending in federal court regarding this roll call, regarding this election.
So you don't see them as coincidental, do you?
I don't, and I haven't read the rules yet, so I haven't seen, but let me tell you, it's not, the media just basically will print what they believe, I guess first and foremost, what they understand. And then second, what they believe can maybe sell some newspapers, and that's always about controversy. So I don't think the rules are as straightforward as the newspaper would want everybody to think it is. It's not that simple. I can tell you that right now.
We're on tweet as well, Twitter, and would like to go to the question that's coming up. I don't see the monitor in front of me, but here we go. Mark Ward, thank you for tweeting in, Mark. Most Republicans equal dinosaurs. Clueless to conservative principles, trying to legislate personal lives, morality, religiosity. Sad. Now, Mark, is this a true-false tweet? But I'm going to let I'll let our guest today respond.
Let me just say,
thank you, Mark. Thank you.
I chuckle at that because that's the kind of myth that I say is in any, if you want to say it's hampering the Republicans, that's the kind of myth that you have out there. First of all, they put you in a box, you're dinosaurs that you know, are basically tied to that kind of ideology and that kind of, I guess you could say, position in regards to some of the social issues that are out there right now. And it can be furthest from the truth. That's not even true. I mean,
well, you know, we'll come back after this short break, and when you and I are both older as dinosaurs. But I'm talking to former Lieutenant Governor James Duke Aiona, and when we come back, we're going to address an issue that is well known to others, the faith of this man of politics and a man of God who is trying to take moral values and family values into the public sphere. We'll be right back after the short break. You don't want to miss that.
Hi, my name is Cindy Matsuki, and I host High Growth with HTDC, where we talk about all things tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, and manufacturing, because there are tons of things that are happening in Hawaii in those fields, and we like to share them with you because more people should know about them. This show broadcasts live every other Tuesday at 3 o'clock on ThinkTech Hawaii, and tune in, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island in the ER position. Every other Tuesday, I get to host a show here on the ThinkTech program about healthcare. We call it Healthcare in Hawaii. It's really enjoyable for me to bring other healthcare leaders from around the state to talk about our pressing issues. Hawaii has long been the health state, but we need to keep up the momentum, the inertia, and with your help and with your participation, we can come and share all of the big issues that are pressing day to day. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday, alternating weeks from 2 to 2:45.
Welcome back to the final segment of today's Ehana Kako. We're here every week on ThinkTech Hawaii. By the way, I've got to say thanks to Jay Fidel and all of the great team who work so hard here. We have volunteers, part-time workers, others who make it possible for ThinkTech to broadcast up to 35 hours of original content from Honolulu every single week. And that's exciting work, focusing on issues with perspectives you don't get anywhere else. So look at all our programs on thinktechhawaii.com. Back now with former Lieutenant Governor James Duke Aiona, an attorney, a judge, an advocate for family values here in the state of Hawaii. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. Duke, one of the things that you've never been able to run away from, and indeed you don't want to run away from, is the fact that the media and the voters and others will always see you as a man of faith, as well as a man in the political world. And there's no hiding the fact that you have been very vocal about family values and have been controversial as a result, and you now lead an organization that promotes those family values, the
Hawaii Family Advocates.
Hawaii
right?
Family Advocates. And so I want to close today by letting our viewers get an intimate and upfront view of that. Let me just ask you this question. How do you respond when people say you're trying to take your religious faith and force it on others through government?
Oh, absolutely not. Just look at my background, and as you mentioned, I started as a jurist. I started as a state judge in family court and then circuit court. If there's anybody that understands, what the law, what the law is and what your role is in relation to that position you have, I think I learned that at a very early age.
We have a lot of people who use the First Amendment to say that it's my right not to process marriage certificates for same-sex couples because it's my religious right. What are your thoughts about that?
You're talking about Ms. Davis in Kentucky. I respect her position. And I think there was a very simple solution to it. They ended up basically agreeing to what should have been done in the first instance, which is that, see, her issue was just that fact,
Sure.
that she has an adamant position, or I should say belief, in regards to her religious liberty. I never thought that was in any way put off the table. She always has this religious liberty. But she wasn't, because in that state, the clerk is required to sign off on the certificates. She wasn't going to do it. So the solution was, okay, well then don't sign off on it. But that was never really, I think, ever put in front of her initially. And then it became, again, the media spun it the way they wanted to spin it, and it got to where it is right now.
And it also goes back to something you alluded to earlier, that it's a lot more complex than often is the case with the media.
I mean, so yes, I am a man of faith, and I tell people I don't get the I don't get it. Why are you so upset about that? I think, wouldn't you want to have a man of faith in office as a public servant? If I aspire to live to my ideals, right? Sometimes we're humans, we fall short. I'm not always perfect, but I aspire to be that. And you know what exactly that is, to be truthful, to be honest, and to be respectful.
What exactly is it that Hawaii Family Advocates and other constituents of yours want to accomplish with respect to the political scene?
Well, we want to bring balance.
Okay.
We want to bring balance, but I also want to give a voice to our faith-based community as well as those that are conservative, because those who are conservative pretty much align with the ideals and the values of the faith community. And it evolves around marriage, it evolves around family, it evolves around life. And I want them to have a voice, a credible voice, not just a voice out there that just screams whenever something comes up, but to really be that credible voice.
Well, let's take the first item you mentioned. You said it revolves around marriage, and you want the faith community to have a voice. Is this the same as saying you want everyone to have the same kind of marriage, the same definition of marriage, or is there a place for the faith community to practice what it believes and others to practice something else?
Well, the law is the law. Obviously, my faith, and I think for many Christians and even those who are not of the Christian sect, I believe that for them, marriage is defined as between a man and a woman. But the law is the law, and we respect the law and we appreciate the law. But that shouldn't stop us in any way in promoting what we believe in. And that's what I mean by promoting marriage in what we believe in. And I don't mean in a condescending way. I don't mean in a derogatory way. I don't mean in a malicious way. In fact, there's no comment on it.
No,
the comment should be on our marriage between a man and a woman. And really, that's my message to all Christians out there and to anybody who believes in marriage between a man and a woman. Well, then live it. Well, then be the example of it. Make people understand why it's important for marriage to be between a man and a woman.
It sounds as
Simple.
though you're drawing a subtle yet very profound line. You said earlier that there's the law and what it says. And the law is blind to gender with regard to the definition of marriage.
Right now it is, right?
Currently,
Right.
yes. And yet you spoke of the fact that you and Hawaii Family Advocates and other believers promote and practice marriage as one man and one woman. How do we live making sure that that line is maintained? It's a subtle line, yes, but it's a profound line. And what I hear you saying is that law is one thing in terms of the rights we accord to others that are given to them by law, but yet society must be able to have the freedom also to practice conscience.
Right. I mean, and again, it goes back to what I just said, respecting it and not denigrating it. In other words, not being malicious towards it or constantly, making comment on it. In fact, there should be no comment on it. And really, like I said, live your marriage. Live what you believe in. So it's like someone who believes that marriage can be between a man and a woman and a woman, and it should be. Well, fine. Then live it and be the best example you can of that. That's all I'm saying. So I don't think I should be able to, for any reason, why I should not be able to profess my faith and my belief.
What do you say when others claim you're trying to take a right away from them?
Oh, not at all. I mean, no, there's not even close to that. I'm not trying to take away any right. Now, I may not agree with how the Supreme Court came to its conclusion, and I don't think I'm alone in that. And I don't think I'm alone in that simply because of my faith and my belief. I believe there's many other legal scholars out there who may be agnostic and or just atheists, who find my rationale or my criticism of the Supreme Court's ruling in the same vein. They're going to say this is a lousy decision. From a legal standpoint, it was a lousy decision. But be it as it may, I believe that what our organization needs to do is to promote what we believe in. That's all I'm saying. I'm just promoting what I believe in. And again, if you go to our vision, you go to our website, HawaiiFamilyAdvocates.com, and check out what we stand for, what our vision is, what our mission is, you're going to see it's nothing more than practicing what we believe in.
So you promote what you believe in,
Right.
Even the right to disagree with others, but
Well,
you do
we
not...
don't promote disagreeing with others.
Right,
I mean,
but-
it's really living what we believe in.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it is a statement you make that is in distinction from what others
Sure,
are saying.
sure, it will
you
be.
promote them,
It will be.
but at the same time, you're saying you don't violate the law that others
No.
are protected
No,
under.
no.
You sound like an atheist, Voltaire, who said, "I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend your right to say it."
Well, I mean, isn't that what America's based upon?
Absolutely.
Right? Isn't it what it's
There's
based
another
upon?
issue Hawaii Family Advocates stands for, and that is the sanctity of human life,
Mhm.
from conception
right.
through death.
Mhm.
And give me an update, if you would, on what the state of conflict, debate over abortion is in the state of
Well, I
Hawaii.
think right now it's been highlighted by the videos on Planned Parenthood, and I think it's given. I hope it's given it new light in regards to what that agency does.
How does the general public determine whether those videos are sound and valid representations of what's really being put out by Planned Parenthood?
I believe that they're unedited. I mean, they can go to multiple websites and YouTube and check it out and see that they are unedited videos, and I believe there's more than what has been publicly, I guess you could say, shown. And so as a result of that, you be the judge on it. But as far as I'm concerned, and I think the HFA is concerned, we think, again, this just kind of, I guess you could say, not rejuvenate, but it gives the issue of abortion or life,
Sure.
and both life and abortion, because I equate the same.
Hasn't
I equate
much
it.
of the outrage to those videos not only come from the pro-life movement, but also from the pro-choice movement?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's no secret about it that the organization that engaged in this is a pro-life, anti-abortion group. There's no question about that.
Well,
and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now, if they did doctor it, if they did in any way, basically produce it and present it in a fraudulent way, I wouldn't support it. But I don't see any of that. I really don't. And it's really, and it comes down to this again, being the voice for your tax dollars.
let's go back to the original conversation we had in the first segment of today's show, and we've only got a few minutes left.
Sure.
Where does this issue of faith-based family values, as you've described them so far, fit with Hawaii Republican Party?
I think the majority of Republicans believe in those, I guess you could say those principles and their values regarding marriage, regarding family, and regarding life. That doesn't mean there are Democrats out there that don't believe in that.
Right.
There are many that believe in it also.
Do you think that these issues should factor into the platform of the party or the candidates who are trying to build the party?
It has, I think on the national level.
Yes.
Here on the local level, it hasn't, and there's controversy on that. And again, I go back to what I had originally said in regards to being a Republican, that it's about you, the person. And obviously, if you feel that, if it's ingrained in you that much, and this is something that you strongly believe in, that you want to run on as a platform, then by all means, I don't see anything wrong with it. But on the other hand, if it can still be a part of you, but you want to emphasize things other than that, I don't think that should be used against you either. And that right now is kind of where the conflict is with the Republican Party.
Well, I'm going to have to stop here. We have so much more that we could learn from you.
Okay.
But on that note, you've struck the kind of balance you were talking about earlier. And I think that really represents your spirit and your heart in terms of approaching the public. Thanks for being with us today,
Keli'i, the
Duke.
time went by too fast. Thanks
It
for having me
did.
on the show.
Well, very glad to do that. My guest today, James Duke Aiona, former Lieutenant Governor of the state of Hawaii. You can contact him if you'll just take a look at that camera over there. Duke?
Well, you can contact me at, several ways you can contact me. You can
How
go,
about one real quick?
okay, 808stateupdate.com.
808stateupdate.com. Well, thanks a lot. Duke, great having you on the show today.
Thank you for
Aloha.
having me on the show again.
Until next week, everybody, aloha.
Aloha.